Good morning and welcome to the first ever Recipes with Rothwell. Today you will need a cup measuring tool, some all-purpose or bread flour, a mixing bowl and the scales if you have them. Firstly, measure out 400 grams or 3 cups of your flour. Now add 1.5 teaspoons of salt to your mix. As you can see at this point, I had trouble finding an appropriate size spoon. Now, using some instant or active dry yeast, add half a teaspoon to your dry mix. Then, using a spatula or a whisk, combine all of the dry ingredients together. Now you're going to take 300 milliliters of tepid water and you're going to slowly add to the mix, stirring with your spoon or your spatula to combine. You should continue stirring until all of the dry ingredients have been incorporated with the liquid. You will be left with a somewhat shaggy, sticky dough. Make sure that you incorporate all of the flour at this stage. If you need to use your hands, then that's fine, get your hands in there. I found that a spatula did okay for me. As you can see, I've now combined all of the ingredients together. I'm going to wipe the excess off the spatula. And I'm going to take some plastic wrap and I'm going to cover the bowl. Cover the bowl securely to make sure that no oxygen can get in and dry out your yeast and flour mix. And I want you to place the bowl somewhere moderately warm in your kitchen. You now need to leave that for 12 to 18 hours. So, good morning, here we are again. I'm in a different t-shirt. I have some flour that I'm going to liberally sprinkle across my worktop. That's going to help the dough not stick to my worktop. Make sure you spread lots of that on your worktop. Now we can see the dough that's been left to rise for 18 hours. There should be lots of bubbles in that dough. That's caused by the yeast fermenting and letting off carbon dioxide, which is what causes the bubbles. We're going to now take off the plastic wrap and using our hand, which we have floured, we are going to try and remove that dough from the bowl with the minimum possible interaction with the dough. So we're going to just try and get it out as quickly as possible into a big lump on the work surface. We try not to overwork the dough. If we overwork the dough, we can cause problems with our bread. Sprinkle some more flour on top of that dough because it will be very sticky at this point. And what we're going to be doing is trying to fold the dough in on itself. Okay, so we're just folding from the front and the sides and the back in on itself. If we need to, we add some more flour if it is sticking to our hands. And we're just going to fold over 3 or 4 times that dough. And we're going to then try and shape the dough into a round ball shape. All of the time we're trying not to knead the dough, we're not trying to have too much interaction with it. We're just going to use our fingertips, add in a very small amount of flour. We don't want to drain this, it is very sticky, but we don't want to make it too dry. And then we're going to use some baking paper and we're going to transfer that rounded ball shape of dough onto the baking paper. This is because we're going to be cooking the bread on the baking paper inside our Dutch oven. So again, as gently as possible, try and just use your fingertips where you can and move your shaped ball onto the baking paper. Last sprinkling of flour on top of that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use the inverted bowl that we've just let our dough rise in, and we're going to place that over the top. And we're going to let that sit for approximately 1 hour. Leave your dough to rise for 1 hour, and then take a Dutch oven or casserole dish. This is a cast iron one, but a ceramic one will be fine. Make sure it has plenty of depth, as the bread will be rising. If you don't have one of these dishes, you can use a baking sheet, but your results may be varied. Place this into a cool oven and set the temperature for 475 degrees Fahrenheit or 265 degrees Celsius. We're going to need to leave that to come up to temperature. So now I've taken the bowl off the top of my dough, and you can see here that it has spread somewhat. It is quite flat, and that's because I left it for over 1 hour. That has caused the dough to collapse in on itself somewhat as the glutens have relaxed. It is important to make sure you stick to 1 hour. Now what I'm going to be doing is taking a knife, and I'm going to be scoring across the top of my dough, and that's just going to create a nice pattern on top of the dough. So I'm going to make 3 gentle cut marks on my dough, and I'm not going to press down too much because I don't want to release the air from my dough. So 3 very simple cut marks. And now I'm going to retrieve my Dutch oven out of my oven, which has now reached temperature of 475 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to be very hot, so make sure that you are using oven gloves or silicone gloves, as you can see I'm using here. You're going to need to take the lid off of that, again ensuring that you use your oven gloves because the lid will be hot as well. I'm just going to move that into place so you can see it on camera, and try not to do what I did, which is to touch the metal with your thumb. Now what I want to do is, on the baking paper itself, I'm going to transfer that into my cast iron Dutch oven, not taking care not to touch the sides, and I'm going to place the lid on top of that. I'm now going to return that to my oven, where I'm going to leave it to cook for 30 minutes with the lid on. At the 30-minute point, I'm going to take the lid off and remain and leave it for another further 15 to 20 minutes to crispen up in the oven, and we'll see what our finished product looks like shortly. I've now retrieved the bread from the oven, and you can see I'm going to carefully grab the parchment paper, making sure not to touch the cast iron pan, and put it onto my board. Slide the parchment paper from underneath and discard. And you can now see that you've got a lovely loaf of bread. Good luck with your baking at home. Make sure you send pictures on Instagram or through your Seesaw account.